Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Modern parenting is filled with pressure from the external world, from social media addictions to technology to constant pushing and striving and achieving. The external world puts a lot of burdens on the parent to make sure that their children stay on track. It's really hard when you're a conscious parent to figure out how much technology should we allow our children? How much should we push them to succeed? How much should we follow what the matrix says? And how much should we create our own rules? All of these questions and more are going to be explored by me on this episode, and I'm going to show you what possible solutions you can find in this mad, mad world we live in. Coming up next, a mother who's really struggling with towing the line between how much should she push her child to strive for success and how much should she let her child be herself. Joining me now is Rupa, a mother who's struggling with how much should she push her children to strive for success? I'm sure so many parents will relate. Hi, Rupa. Welcome. Tell us what's going on.
Hi, Dr. Shefali. Thank you for this opportunity. I was hoping to get some advice from you on finding the right balance between encouraging my kids to step outside their comfort zone versus just letting them follow their own interests. I do want to make sure they're set up for success in this competitive world, but I also want to make sure that they grow up feeling whole and they have a healthy sense of self-esteem. So I find myself at the crossroads many times. So I have an 11-year-old who's just about to step into middle school, and we're navigating how to get her into the right classes. And it's a complex education system out there. I do want to make sure that I understand that education is really important. And I do want to make sure she's exploring subjects and areas outside of her immediate interest currently so that I can understand it. That's something that might be of interest to her potentially, but I don't want it to be a source of stress for her. How do I kind of navigate that? Would love some advice from you on that.
So, yes, I understand your concerns. It's something every parent has to deal with. Like, how much do I push my kid? I hear that question so many times. Well, first, I want to say that you're trying to do too much. You're like, I want to make sure she's set up for success, and I want to make sure she's out of her comfort zone, but I want to make sure she follows her interests, but I want to make sure she's really secure. So you're putting too much on your plate. So just relax, right? Deep breath. We parents want to be perfect and do everything correctly. We cannot. So first, relax. You think you're doing it correctly. If you are, it's an illusion. There is no such thing as correctly. Okay? So relax. Now, let me ask you, where did you get this idea that she should not just do things that she's interested in, but she should actually do things she may not be interested in? Where is that coming from?
I think it's really coming from the way I also pursued my education, Dr. Shefali. I think I was someone that's always, pushed myself to work hard and to go after opportunities which might not necessarily align with my interests immediately. And after a little bit of a push, I figured out that maybe I can grow a little bit and I can fit into this situation. But it is a little bit of a friction internally, even for me, as I'm going through that phase of exploring to see if it fits my interests or not. So it's really just in my DNA that's the way I have operated so far, to go and try a few things which are outside my comfort zone and see if it aligns with me or not. It's been a hit or miss. Sometimes I find myself too overwhelmed, but sometimes I feel like, okay, I've grown as a person a little bit.
I love it. I love that you can identify that it's coming from your DNA. As long as you can do that, at least you've taken the first step. Now, your child is 11, right? She is full of love and joy, and she wants to do things where she feels that joy. So you're trying to tell her, no, she should not just do things that give her joy, do things that make you suffer, because that'll teach you some different life skills, right? Don't you think it's a bit early? Like, why are you rushing it? What is the harm if even till 17 she does things she enjoys? There's a fear. So go to the fear. There's a fear underneath you and most of us parents. What is your fear?
I think the fear is pretty much like when I look at her peers and the peer parents, everybody, you will not believe it. We're trying to map out starting middle school, what does it look like in terms of taking classes so they're set up for success at high school, at college. So there's a whole reverse planning that I see everybody doing, and I do not want to be left behind. I do want to make sure that I'm giving her the right opportunities to set her up for success and to explore her potential. But I do see what you're saying. I don't want to get her into situations which just brings in more and more fear and cripples her. But I want her to kind of flourish. I want the best of both worlds, pretty much, Dr. Shefali. I don't know if that's possible, but yeah.
Right. I understand what you're saying. One is the world of pressure and success and achievement and creating a map and doing everything according to this prescription list and making your kid a robot because you want to take them from A to B. And the other one is letting her explore, letting her find her passion, letting her find her voice, relaxing and trusting. So as I talked, which way made you relax?
The second.
The second. Right. And let me tell you, the second one, the flowing, the showing up in the moment, trusting the moment, letting your child lead the way and moving forward is a calming way, is a more sane way. The other one is some insane way that we've decided is reality based on a very insane modern world. That is not a good way to live, working backwards. So it's like this. The parent decides they want the child to be a doctor. Let's work backwards. Are you crazy? That's going to drive the kid crazy because you're already deciding the future and then working backwards to the present moment. How about let's create the future, which is my child needs to be confident. My child needs to know who it is they are. My child needs to have self-worth. My child needs to be relaxed and enjoy their childhood. Now let's work backwards from that achievement. Now you see how different your present moment will be? It all depends on what you decide is the future goal. If you decide that the future goal is a corporate CEO, that's going to be a very different present moment. If you decide the future is an Olympic athlete, that's going to be a very different present moment. If you decide that you have to get married by 36 and you have to have 6 children by 40, that's going to be a very different present moment. But if you decide that the future is about trusting the moment and evolving and seeing how things develop, and we're going to be organic and we're going to be spontaneous and we're going to be authentic from what emerges within the child, now the parent backs off. Now there is no future working backwards. Now we're like, oh, let me listen to my child right now. Let me see what my child wants to do with her life. Now, this doesn't mean that the child gets to be a dropout. It doesn't mean that the child gets to be an alcoholic. I'm not saying don't be in charge, but don't dictate what the future should look like. Those parents who are working on this automation and linear insanity, they think they know what their child should be in the future, but they're not right. Who said that they are right? So don't work according to a prescription list that is so tight and so rigid, because you lose the ability to teach your child to discover who it is they are in the present moment. Now, this takes a lot of trust from you. See, you're scared because you don't want to be left behind.
That's right. That's right, Dr. Shefali. But I think the other thing, as you were talking, that I was thinking about is trusting her and listening to her is also something which is challenging. She comes and she shares a lot of, stories around how her day was, how things went, what she likes, what she doesn't like. I just find it hard to keep up with her. It's hard for me after my day's work to be tuned into her, to be empathetic, to be connected. I do feel like it's hard for me to create that tight bond so that I'm fully tuned with her. And I am able to be that parent that you're talking about, who's able to understand this is what she likes. Let me completely trust her and be following her way, as opposed to, forcing my agenda upon her.
So let me take you back to your own childhood. Who was able to listen to you and tune in? Anyone?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So she was present for me, to talk to me, to listen to me. But I think it was also because I had my days packed and I had a lot of internal pressure from my side to just study and to perform. I found myself dealing with a lot of things internally, which I possibly didn't share with my mom, even though she was present and right there and willing to listen to me.
So where did this internal pressure to be so perfect and succeed and go through all that come from? Where were you inheriting this from?
I'm not sure how that happened and how I ended up being this way. I don't know how that really happened. Maybe it was a lot of peers of, just looking at my social circle and having this drive to keep driving for perfection. I'm not really sure, to be honest, where it's coming from.
But what's really important is what you said, how you felt about it. How did you feel being so pressured and pushing yourself at such a young age?
I think it's just scarred me so much. It's been like something I've been working through to this age to kind of navigate. It is something I battle constantly. And it's not a fun feeling to go into any environment. Like there's a performance pressure, basically. And that doesn't help in any situation. If I could just let myself be and even just do 50% of what I'm able to do, I'd be so much more happier internally. So, yeah.
And as you're talking, I felt that pressure right away. I was like, boy, she wants to do everything. How must that be for you as a parent to live with that burden? I want to do this and I want to do that. And I want to make sure she's like this and I want to make sure you are driven to perfectionism to a very perfect degree, right? You're not just a perfectionist, you're a perfect perfectionist. And that ultimately only is going to ruin your inner peace. Ultimately, the only one suffering from your inner perfectionist is you. You are driving yourself to an insane level of perfectionism. And of course, then you look at your child as a product, an object, a puppet to fix, to manage, to over control. And that's not fair to her. But you yourself are saying, hey, I suffered as a child.
Yeah.
This pressure exhausted me and I'm still exhausted from it. And it's a tremendous stress to feel like you have to perform all the time.
Yeah.
So your answer is right in front of you and you're not listening. You're overriding your own truth of your own life experience.
I completely hear you, Dr. Shefali. I think the fear comes from the fact that she still needs to navigate this complex world and it is competitive out there. Is she going to be okay if I just let her be and if I just let her follow her path?
Okay. You're making it sound like that's like a cop-out, like a defeat. Oh, will she be okay if I just let her follow her own way? Like, oh, will I be okay letting her be a loser? Like that's the tone you're saying it in, like as if it's a defeat. And the other way has some virtue for you. You're still not letting go of the stress of that way. You're actually rationalizing that it has virtue. That way to me sounds like burnout central. That way to me sounds like robot, performer, false self, ego, external validation. But you're still rationalizing that that's the virtuous way because this world is so complex. I'm here to tell you, this world is not so complex. We make it complex. You are making it complex because you like achievement. You like the ego material payback of success. You have bought into that. So you are willing to compromise peace, self-worth, harmony, inner calmness for that. See, you're in a big conflict because you like your achievement-driven life. You like the accolades. You like the money it's given you. But you're also aware it took the life out of you in terms of peace, stability, calmness. It stressed you out. But you're in conflict. You're like, oh, but look at all the trinkets I could buy. Look at all the privileges I could purchase. You have to decide. Do you really think it was worth losing your inner peace for? And are you willing to barter your child's inner peace and calmness and sanity for what you've decided it's worth, which is this external validation and money and objectification? That's something you have to decide. To me, it's a very high price to pay. To me, if my daughter gave up her inner peace for some future goal or some future success, for me, that's not worth it. But you have to decide that as a mother.
No, I think I absolutely hear you now. I feel like I possibly never really committed to this being the right path. And that's why the conflict was there in my mind. But I see what you're saying. I think for me, what's most important is that she has a healthy sense of self-esteem. She grows up whole as a person and it doesn't feel like conflicted in tone inside internally. So I do completely hear you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you. But the way to pivot back into self-worth and self-esteem is that we as parents need to let go of our attachment to what the matrix says is important. We need to stop buying into what the Matrix says. And just because the Matrix says we should have 3 cars and we should travel the world and we should have an apartment or a house, that is what the culture says is what happiness is, or what peace is, or what achievement is. We, as conscious humans, get to recreate our own standard for comfort, for wealth, for success, for happiness. You get to define the parameters. Don't just give in to what culture says. You've just kind of, keeled over and said, well, this is a complex world. This is what's needed. That's not true. That's what you believe that culture says is what's needed. You get to choose and create your own culture. And that is a truly conscious parent. Well, thank you very much for joining and being so open and vulnerable with us.
Thank you, Dr. Shefali. I appreciate your time.
So many of us parents feel the pressure that this mother is experiencing because you see, culture puts all this achievement stress. Your child should do this and then go to this kind of college. And it's like we're all sheep going to the same slaughterhouse, willing to give up our peace and harmony for the ideals that culture tells us are important. As conscious parents, we get a chance, a very daring and brave opportunity to reframe what culture puts out there and to renegotiate the terms for what we believe is success, what we believe is happiness. We get to choose differently, and our children deserve parents who re-examine what culture puts on the table and don't just regurgitate what culture says we should do. Our children deserve parents who defy what culture says, who question it, who deconstruct it, who challenge it. That is the core of a truly brave and conscious parent. Coming up next, parents who are struggling to make their no technology rule work with their 3-year-old daughter. Joining me now are Harsharan and Calvin. They are the parents of a 3.5-year-old daughter. They've made a no technology rule for their daughter, but they are struggling to make it work. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Welcome. I'm so happy to see you both from the UK. So tell me what you're struggling with.
So we've made a no technology rule in the house. So that's how it's been since she's born. We sold a TV as well. But where we struggle the most is when it comes to the outside world. At home, we are fine. There are 1 or 2 issues we have every now and then, but it's where we struggle is we feel like we are not equipped when we go outside. When we see people at restaurants or even at family houses, or we go to friends' house where the technology is on, we feel we don't know what to tell our daughter, like how to kind of navigate that when she's sitting there. Do we say, turn the TV off? Or we don't know how to kind of handle that. Even, for example, when we go to my parents' house, TV's on, I find myself hiding remote and shutting the TV down for everybody else and let the kids cry, because I just feel like I need to protect my child and not have her exposed to that. And now she's coming to an age, 3.5, where she starts to understand what TV is, that she thinks our phones don't really, play things that other people's phones do. But how do we sort of navigate that? What do we do in that situation?
Well, first, let me applaud you for having a no technology rule in the house. That is incredible, because that means you guys have committed to that. And I know that even when I was a young parent, I didn't have the discipline. So I just want to applaud you. How amazing that you've made your house technology free. Having said that, you will go crazy trying to protect her from technology in the outside world, right? And it's not fair. And listen, you and I grew up with the TV. It did not eat our brains. It did not rot our minds. It was okay, within balance. So what you're trying to really do is, within your home, create a technology-free zone where there's creativity, there's play, there's connection. That is amazing. But it's okay. The best you can do when you go outside is tell your parents or the home you're in, hey, let's not have violence. Let's not have things that are inappropriate for a 3.5-year-old who may get traumatized because she's never seen these things. But if the cartoon is on, or if some singing is on, or they're playing cricket, really, it's not going to ruin her. So don't overextend your panic to every area, And also when she's at her friends' houses, You can talk to the parents as best you can and try to tell them what your intentions are. But if they watch some cartoons, it's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. I think you're doing a great job. I think you have the right intentions. I think it is important to protect our children, but a family movie night or a cartoon here and there is certainly not going to make anything terribly awful.
Yes.
So I think that being said, I think what is the limit then, right? Because what actually happens is the other children will be on their devices, right? But when I say they're on their devices, I mean, if we're there for a 5-hour period, they're on the devices for like 4, right? So we see a big difference there. So, I guess when we see that they can't be taken away from it, that causes its own problems between, them and the parents. So it's like, I guess we're trying to keep her away from the device because it's the addiction part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to let it go. Or as soon as we come back, I want the device. Or when we're traveling in the car, can I get the iPhone again, right? And that's what I'm seeing with, one of Sharon's sister's child, right? As soon as he's in the car, the dad gives him the phone. And I look at him, I was like, why did you do that? And it's become that's automatic.
Yeah, so I think we just, when we protect, we kind of protect because depending on where you are, for example, I took her to a friend's house and, I had already mentioned that we don't watch TV and they were fine with that. But when they were eating, they put TV on, I wasn't panicking. My daughter was completely fine. She was just kind of ate her food and start playing because I realized that I didn't put pressure on it and I didn't make a big deal. So she kind of was okay with that. But it's scenarios like that where children are continuously on their devices and that's all they're doing, and then she would sit down and then we look like the bad guys, like trying to take, especially me, she associates that when mom comes in the room she would say something or take it away, because for me it's always the children together, like let them play because we're going to go and they're not going to see each other. So I think it gets very complicated, and the boundaries as well, like we do feel that they are not respected by the family members. I mean, we have had scenarios where a family member would put something on for her, and sometimes sad for us to see because we are used to our daughter just playing and she doesn't know any other world.
So here's the thing, you're 1000% correct. You are absolutely the most amazing parents for doing that, but we're not living in a perfect world. So I think if you want to really protect her, you have to only hang out with parents who agree by the contract and find your tribe. There are particular schools, there are many schools you can explore which deny technology completely. We do not allow technology at all. Find those schools so you can hang out with those parents who are aligned with you. And then don't hang out with your sister, while your daughter is there. I'm sorry, because it is the truth. These technological devices, these addictions are taking our children's lives over, and parents are not realizing. So you can hang out with your sister on your own. Just tell her, sorry, it's nothing against you. I'm against technology. I've seen what it does to our children's brains. You don't agree. I respect you. Respect me. Let's meet as sisters, but I'm not going to include the family because I have to protect my child. So it depends on you how far you want to go with it. But having said that, a movie here, a movie there is not going to kill her. But I think what you're talking about is 5-6 hours at a time. And listen, you're going to have to make even harder choices. You've already made a hard choice of removing technology. So if you could do that, you can tell your sister, hey, let's just meet as sisters, but we're not going to meet with the kids. And then curate the social group she hangs out with and find those parents who are only going to abide by you. And guess what? Start your own group. Put it out there in your own neighborhood. Parents of 3- and 4-year-olds who want to live technologically free, sign up here. We'll have our own play dates. We'll create our own culture. We'll create our own movement.
That sounds really good. I think that's a great idea, Dr. Shefali. I think we've moved around a lot to find a good school for her, a Montessori school, and her school's in nature. And we've seen a massive difference. There was a scenario where her school had to teach them something, and we went to pick her up and she was playing in the different corner, and while all of the kids were sort of...
It was at the back of the room.
Yeah, and she was playing herself, and we asked why. She was like, I want to play with babies. I didn't want to sit down. And you could see that's the choice she has made, because I have noticed myself that there was a point between the age of 2 and 3 where you don't realize how much kids notice everything you do. And she could see it's me hiding the remotes at my family's house and shutting the TVs down. Soon as I walk in, it's like a panic, shut the TV down and let everybody go outside, play. I don't care if it's raining, just go outside and play and have fun in the mud. And I started to notice that that's how I became the bad guy. And now I'm more careful how to manage that rather than just taking it away. Because I think it's the protectiveness, like I maybe do it over the top at times. It's just I always think I just need to protect her from the world. And this situation has sort of made me and maybe Calvin as well, like that, where it's just feel like the world's against you at times. It's like, why are we doing this to our children?
Yeah, I think you're a leader. I applaud you. I wish I had known you when my kid was younger. So don't get afraid. Be the leader, start a movement, create consciousness, find the 5 parents. You only need 2 or 3 really that abide by you. And yes, you are up against the world. That's what consciousness is. It is going against the tide. And be brave. Don't give in. You're not doing anything wrong. The only thing you could be doing, quote unquote, wrong is overdoing the paranoia. You can't control her from every screen. I mean, you can't bubble wrap your kid. However, these first 7-8 years are precious. So you're protecting her brain is crucial. However, after 8, if she watches a movie every week, she's not going to die. And then after 12, you're going to have to release those reins anyway. But what you're doing is protecting the brain when it most needs protection. And that's between the ages of 0 to 7 to 10 maximum. So do that, and then we may have to release control. But at least you're giving your daughter nature and movement and creativity and imagination and play, which is the child's language. And by giving our children screens, we're actually abducting them from their mother tongue, quote unquote, their mother, father tongue, whatever you want to say. Their native tongue is play. And by removing play and giving them screens, which is artificial play, superficial, virtual play, we are taking away their language. The way they learn, the way they understand the world is through play. So I say, kudos to you, protect her play and create a movement and find other parents who can do it with you and divorce yourself from the rest of the world. Yes.
Yeah.
See, I really like that. I can see us starting a movement for that. That would be great. And then I think the only issue remains with Sharon's parents, to be honest.
No, but I think sometimes we probably need to be a bit more firm. I think grandparents forget that now you're a parent as well, and you have your own rules. And that's where I think we struggle a little. And I sometimes look at the older generation, like our parents who, like, technology wasn't there for them at all. So that sometimes surprised me, that why, we should be kind of saying, no technology, like you have a limit. We always say that after she's 5, where she can sit and watch me, we'll take her cinema, we'll take her plays, slowly, but we'll keep it outside. I mean, it's done so much benefit for us. First week when we sold our TV, we thought, what are we going to do? And I think we do just fine without it ourselves. It's a bit, I go to bed early. We kind of have our 9-hour sleep now. So which is pretty good. But yeah, I think starting a movement is really good idea, and finding parents. And like you said, it's only 1 or 2 you need that you hang around with, where she kind of gets socialized and play without technology.
Yeah, and I think with your parents, you just tell them they can come visit you, or Mom, Dad, I'll come, but I'll only stay for 30 minutes, or I'll only stay for an hour. You can't have your cake and eat it too in today's world. You're going to have to make choices. But I think you're very strong. You're on the right track, and I applaud you. And I'm so happy to hear that there are young parents like this out there, and keep going and don't give in, and you're doing the right thing for your child.
Okay.
Just to add, I think parents, I think it's more about monitoring, right? Because like the reality is, I understand it. They want to have their, young ones around them, right? But it's easier to have them on the devices because it's kind of done the checkbox of them being around. That's great, but I don't have to get involved as much, right? And that's why I see in restaurants when, people sit down, they're like, here's a device, like, so let me start ordering my food and I can get on. So I think it's just monitoring that. I did pick up one of the other children were on the device. He was watching something that was great, and then the next movie, it caught my eye, right? And it was actually a horror story.
It was an advertisement.
That was next, right? And it caught me to where I watched it. I was like, let me have a look at that, Kyra, let's have a look. And then as I watched it, I was in disbelief because I was like, okay, the controls are not put in, but Yeah, I just think monitoring, but it is unavoidable, especially parents, and that's great, but it's just the monitoring side.
It's really a tragic situation what's happening today to our young children. And we will only see the negative impacts of it in the next generation. Your child needs to be protected, because when you and I were growing up, it was different. When our parents were growing up, it was different. Even my daughter kind of escaped it because in her young ages, she didn't have technology. Your children are going to suffer because it's literally now everywhere. So you recognizing that is so wise, so smart. We are going to pay a price for what we're doing to our children. And this is completely anti-child. It's as if we have created a world that is now so toxic for our children that they are not even children anymore. You see, children are particularly meant to play and be rough and imaginative and go outside and be wild and free and untamed. But now their brains are being addicted to this artificial dopamine, which is going to be so dangerous for them when they grow up, because if the brain is already stimulated to that level of dopamine, you and I know it's so hard now to read a book because we want the dopamine. We want to watch a movie. We want to hear the sound effects. So just by our brain getting hijacked, imagine what it does to a young child's brain that isn't even developed yet. So we're going to see tremendous backlash within the next 10 years. We're already seeing it, but it's going to be way more. So you are protecting your child against a drug. So keep on it, never lose your clarity, and don't give in to the crowd.
Yeah, I think even the research that's out. My friend, she's a psychologist, she actually showed it to me. And they both were like very young, her kid and my daughter. And I made a decision, I said, we're not going to do this. And when I look at the depression rates that they are rising, I think that's what scares me the most. Is you just think, I don't want to be responsible for this. There will be a lot she will have to go through and I have to be there for her, but I don't want to give her pain. I don't want to be the first one to say, hey, here you go. And this is my gift to you. When you go up to 18 and you struggle, you wouldn't know what to do. I just think that's maybe I kind of do it too much, but in my head, it's like, I always think I can't do that to her. And then see her struggling in my head, when she's 18 and the emotion suppressing, when soon as you give child iPad and those sort of things. And I do read a lot, I think, but it's so much out there. When as soon as you type in and there's so much research comes out, same with everything. And I think it's your book as well, The Conscious Parent. So every step we take, it's always looked at. Maybe we need to change. Most of the time it's us who needs to change.
I think you're fabulous. I really recommend someone like you to join my coaching institute because you would be an amazing coach. I think you have all the ingredients. I think you're doing a great job. So continue on. I'm really proud that you're doing this for your child.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Very good. I have one quick question. When it comes to she's 3.5 now, it was kind of refreshing to hear you say, I think maybe we are overdoing it to a degree, and me as, puppy as she calls me, I kind of have this vision of it would be nice sometimes to sit down and watch a movie like Little Mermaid.
Of course. I think you should. I think you need to watch a movie and get popcorn and have a great quote unquote real life experience. It's just that do what we did when we were kids to that degree, but nothing more, you see?
Right. But every now and then that's probably okay because I feel like it's outside of, it's like a thing. It's not like an everyday thing. It's like an event.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's no harm in that. Just do it, since she's 3.5, you can do it every month. After she's 5, you can do it every 2 weeks. Have fun with it. Don't also remove all of life's joys. Yes. But thank you so much for joining. And I'm sure this episode is going to help so many other parents.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shefali.
What an incredible pair of mothers we heard from today. Both of them were really longing to give their children a sense of safety, a sense of worth, sense of simplicity. But both of them were struggling with culture's mandates of striving or technology or distractions or pushing. And this is it, right? With parents in the modern world, we are constantly in this bind. Do I allow my child to really have a childhood? to really go slow, to really get into their own sense of self? Or do I follow what the rest of culture is doing, either in technology and allowing my kid to have devices, or pushing them and making them succeed and telling them to follow a prescription list? Today's world is truly on a crazy track of increased distraction, increased technology, addictions, and really complete and utter lack of inner connection and interpersonal real connection. What our children need the most, and you heard this from both mothers when they came to realize that our children, more than anything else, require safety, connection, presence, a sense of play and spontaneity and freedom, and most of all, a childhood that is focused on who it is they are as children and not who they're going to become as adults. When we give our children what children truly need, which is freedom to play, freedom to be seen as ordinary, fallible, limited, as imperfect, not puppets that we're going to put behind a screen, or puppets we can control with devices, or puppets we push on this conveyor belt to success. It is then that our children will thrive the most. If you've learned a lot from this episode, I hope you will share it with your friends. And do you want to be a guest on my next episode? If you do, go to my website, drshefali.com, and go to podcast and fill up the guest form. Maybe you'll be here talking with me. And I will see you next time on Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.